Alright, so please excuse my voice. I've got a bit of a cold that I've brought back with me from Sal. Actually, I didn't bring back with me. I've got it since I came back. What we're looking at here today is backstroke, and a common problem with a lot of backstrokers, especially young backstrokers, in that instead of having a straight body, what they tend to do is arch their back in that position. You can see that's happening here with Neo. You can see the back's really arched, and that arch takes the hips away from the surface and effectively makes people kick in that direction to try and get to the surface. You can see that's really the way the body's trying to angle itself, as opposed. Oh, no, don't do that. Thank you. As opposed to kicking along the surface, we're now kicking to get ourselves to the surface, which is detracting from speed and making the work much harder. If we just run this video through, we're running about 30% of speed. You can see the hips are well away from the surface and the knees are never coming up to the surface. The thighs are never broaching the surface. So that's something we really want to address in most swimmers, but it's not solely Nia who's showing it. So here we are with Buffy, and once again we see a very curved, arched back that leads to the hips being well below the surface. And we don't really want to see that. We want the hips up onto the surface. And you can see what it does to her swimming as we play this forward. The knees never really approach the surface, and the thighs should actually be slightly out the water on every single kick. And so she's kicking her body up towards the surface as opposed to kicking her body in the direction it needs to go, which effectively is backwards in this case. And that sinky hip is effective on the turn as well. So here we go, we're going through the turn, we come out the turn, we're heading downwards, and it's a slow kick, but then the arch happens, the legs are now trying to push us to the surface, and we're completely the wrong angle to get a good push to the surface at speed, which is what we want if we're racing. Now let's just compare that with Ryan. Although this isn't absolutely perfect, we still have a bum slightly dipped. If you look at the hips and the rotation and the position of the leg on every single stroke, you'll see that they're actually broaching the surface on every single stroke as the rotation happens. And the fact that he's on the surface enables him to rotate and really grab the water. Unfortunately, this is only a short clip. But the difference between the two is huge. The curve in the back is putting the legs down in the others, whereas the legs are on the surface with Ryan here. And Ryan is obviously a backstroker as opposed to any other stroke. So let's just finish this off with a look at Connor and Amy in a short clip. You can see Connor's got his head in line with his body, so his thighs and hips are quite close to the surface. And that's effectively the difference. Amy too has her head pretty much in line with her body. There's a slight dip, a slight arch in the back there, but you can see the hips are quite close to the surface and the thigh actually broached the water there as she came up. And that's what we want. We want a hydrodynamic swimmer that's close to the surface and is making the most of propulsion going backwards, pushing you effectively forwards, which is backwards obviously in backstroke. But the head has to remain level, in line with the spine, in line with the hips, in line with the thighs, so that you can absolutely remain steady at the surface. You can see Amy's thigh there actually broached the surface as she kicked. So that's how effectively it should be done, and hopefully we'll get everyone doing that.